What's going on, everybody? This is Ike. I'm here at the House of Greatness. Today, we have one of my good friends, actually someone I've known for a while in the industry, San Diego, as most of you know him, Sam, the Vice President of Supplinks. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is an awesome experience. What a beautiful setup.
Thank you.
A cool place, and thanks for bringing me on.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, have you done any of these before? Have you done any podcasts recently, or?
This is actually my second one.
Okay.
This has started happening recently. There's been a lot of interest in the Japanese market. We've been expanding very well with a lot of brands, and I just did one with Shane from Stack 3D.
Okay,
and,
love Shane.
Yeah, Shane's a great guy. Shout out Shane. Basically here, and just wanted to talk to you. You're known as like the international rep of international stuff.
Is that what I'm known for?
Yeah, you're known as the guy. You're the guy. So it's interesting how we met, and
yeah.
I thought it was just a great collaboration of basically your experience, my experience, and just to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the international business is very interesting to a lot of brand owners out there, especially American brand owners trying to grow their business. The international market has changed a lot in the last 10 years, probably even more so in the last 5 years, right? Yeah. Asia is probably one of the, if not the biggest growing markets in general around the world right now.
Yep. Very
Very difficult market, obviously. But I think for everybody who maybe this is their introduction to San Diego Sam, obviously people want to know where that nickname came from. How'd you get into the industry? Where did you start? And then we'll talk a little bit about what you're doing now.
Sounds like a plan. Well, I'm going to bore you for about 2 minutes of this monologue that I have all the time. I have this every single day with every brand that I have, so I've just kind of rehearsed this. But here's the background. So start off like a lot of people in GNC. I was born and raised in San Diego and walked into a GNC one day. Was super interested about
supplements. How old are you at this time?
How old was I at this time?
16?
So I was 20.
Okay.
I was 20. So I wanted to learn how to lift weights and get into the health and fitness thing.
Like most consumers, first place you go?
First place I go. Bodybuilding.com back then was really popular.
Yep.
So I would look online, and as I looked at supplements, I realized that I didn't know the difference between the brands. So I started studying about formulations of how to compare products.
Wow.
Walked into GNC to compare prices on promos, and from there, got a job there.
Wow.
That's how it started. So
were you looking for a job and they offered it?
No,
or?
I did not look for a job. I walked in, and the guy tried to sell me the GNC products as he was supposed to as a sales rep.
Yep.
And I counter-argued with him about in terms of ingredients, dosage, and pricing. And the guy, the manager, his name's Andrew, he told me, he's like, "You want to work here?" And I was like, that would be interesting. So
wow.
I figured, why not? And I was going to college at the time. I was going to San Diego State. And so I decided to work there part-time as a job. And I ended up becoming one of the top producing salespeople in the entire region.
Wow.
Well,
how long were you there?
I was there for 2 years, and then I ended up switching to Force Factor.
Okay.
And so I worked over there.
Those guys are out of Massachusetts, right?
Yes, I believe so. So I was just doing demos. So I got my first interaction with sales reps where they come in. I saw like Cellucor, Muscle Tech, those brands. And I ended up doing demos, and I was crushing demos, and it was a really good time. So I did that for some time, and then transitioned to Macro Cap, which is NutriKey, Rep Sports, Raise energy drinks. And I had no experience. This is all specialty. This is learning how to sell to brands and distributors, learning about margin and pricing, completely different than selling to the consumer.
Right.
So I worked with those guys and basically started off as a California rep, became a West Coast rep, did gym specialty.
Back in that time, that's when I would say NutriKey was kind of the focus of the portfolio for those guys.
They only had NutriKey.
Yeah, see, Raise I don't think existed yet, right?
Nothing existed. I came into a commodity brand.
Yeah.
And they were an East Coast-based company with very little West Coast presence. They never had a West Coast-based rep, and they had reps in Midwest and East Coast, and they gave me a shot. They gave me a chance. I was definitely underqualified, and basically because I was so persistent and following up, they said, "Hey, you keep calling every single week asking about the job application, what's going on. If you could do half as much follow-up as you do right now, you'll be successful in this industry."
Yeah.
So they gave me a shot, learned the business, became one of the top producing reps, and started developing into other markets like international markets.
And I'd say, shout out to Chris and Lex, actually some of my great friends, man. Some of the guys I respect most in this industry, guys that do things the right way and have built a hell of a brand, and they're doing some cool things now. So shout out to those boys. But I think our paths crossed, obviously, in your NutriKey days.
Yep.
And I think living in California, I think you kind of indirectly fall into some international business, right?
Yep.
A lot of stuff, more specifically Asia business, ships out of
Yep.
California,
Yep.
More specifically probably LA. You've got a lot of Asian businesses that actually operate in the state of California, but they're operating the Asian businesses, right? Whether it's China, Thailand, Taiwan, or Japan, right?
Yeah.
So you got a lot of that. So I think maybe indirectly being out there, a lot of those customers buy from distribution, and then they'll buy from brands, obviously. So that's kind of where paths kind of cross.
That's exactly what happened. So, again, shout out to Chris and Lex for giving me that opportunity and being able to develop it. And so the reason why I cross paths with, like you said, the Asian market with the drop shippers and everyone that's in Los Angeles was I visited Japan on vacation one year.
Oh, wow.
And this is my first vacation. After 2 years of working, I decided to visit Japan.
By the way, if you're in the sports nutrition, you don't get vacations.
You don't.
So.
Basically, it took 2 years to get my time off because I was a hustler. I would work weekends. I would do demos over, at nighttime. I was so into the grind of building up my reputation.
Yep.
And because of this proof of concept, Chris and Lex took a gamble when I proposed to them, let me go to Japan, pay for these expenses. It was a big, big expense. And I'm going to try to land a new distribution.
Wow.
So no experience in that international market. And the timing of everything made sense. It was because Hide Yamagishi was having his first show.
Okay.
And this was going to be in the Japan Classic over there. And Hide used to buy the NutriKey products.
Okay. That's when he had, a gym in Vegas, maybe?
Yes, this was when Body Cafe and the gym was
Yeah.
at that.
That cool gym.
The cool gym. It
Yeah,
was a really
that was a
nice
really
spot.
cool
The
gym, really
smoothies and
nice,
everything.
yeah.
So we were really good friends, and he's such a nice guy.
Awesome.
And
Love Hide.
he asked me if I wanted to kind of help sponsor the show in terms of to help bring awareness and everything like that. And so ended up doing that, going there, and I needed to find a distributor that would sell our products. So I visited all these different distributors, and basically I ran into one called Suplinks. And a little bit about culture. Japan is an island culture where they're
Right.
basically very conservative. They don't want to take on new things that don't have a proof of concept. And they were kind of against it, but I proposed them an idea, which was, what if I sell you the products at cost? What if I make no money? What if I show up? What if I sell the products myself in person? What if I do everything? And you have no risk,
No risk.
basically.
Right.
And I had to pitch this to Chris and Lex. And they said, do you think you can do it? And I said, I can do it if I'm there in person. So I go to this event, and they set up a booth, and we do everything like that. NutriKey paid for all these things. And we sold more products that expo than they've ever done in company history.
So the distributor.
The distributor.
Wow.
And this is off a brand that was unheard
Did
of.
that distributor, have they done that event before, or did you also have to convince them to do that event?
So they do events, but that
Okay.
was a brand new event. So they've
Okay.
never done this
Oh,
event
okay.
before, but they have experience in doing events.
Gotcha.
And,
And this
so
event was packed from a consumer perspective?
it was a pretty
good
good
turnout?
event for
For
first
first
year.
show,
It was
yeah.
great. It was really
Wow.
great. And so
And actually selling product, because, there's a lot of shows where you don't sell a lot of product a lot of
Correct.
times. So the fact that the consumer was open to buying right there on the spot.
and we had sampling over there, and basically I don't speak any Japanese. They hired an interpreter to stand by me. So I trained
No English in Japan, right? Majority?
Majority would be no English in Japan, or very little. In Tokyo, you'll get some, but basically you get out and you don't really have much. So
It's like China, yeah. Very rare.
same situation. So basically have the interpreter do the trade show, sample out this product that has never been heard of in market, first time pitch.
Do you find that the consumers were a little hesitant
They
just because they don't really know?
yes.
Yeah. 'Cause
Absolutely. They're very
One of
hesitant.
my first experiences in China, I kind of came across the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was just, they don't know. Like, they just don't
They
know
don't.
what it is
Yeah.
and what it does.
Yeah, and that's what ended up happening was because everyone was super hesitant, but you have me who's extremely outgoing, who's on 4 pre-workouts and just a ton
Energy
of
drinks and protein bars.
That's it. And so I'm super high energy. I'm drawing people to the booth. I'm basically passing off people that don't speak English to Japanese staff who I educated them on how to pitch the products and sell these things. And the event was a success.
Wow.
And so they ended up taking a risk, and they've never brought in a brand that they did not have a proof of concept for. And that was the first steps of Supplinks evolving from being a relister, what we call a box seller, taking a popular brand and just putting it online like a standard Amazon reseller,
right,
to why not develop things that have not entered market, but you get exclusivity and control. And that is the process of how it started.
Wow. That's awesome story. I mean, literally ground level, breaking down the barriers. Talk about it, right? Everybody took a gamble on you, and definitely paying off now.
Yep.
As we dive deeper and talk about the Japanese market, it's probably one of the biggest markets that'll be in the upcoming next 5 to 10 years, right?
Absolutely.
And I actually personally have been to Japan. I've been to China a few times. A couple of other Asian companies always wanted to go to Japan, but haven't been there.
A couple of times.
Been there, been to China. It was okay. Always heard Japan, just better weather, food, just a wholly different ball game, right?
I love it. I mean, I'm a fan of
technology. That stuff is pretty cool.
Yep.
But in my years, early ProSups years, Japan was always one of those countries where it was like, man, it's just too hard.
Yeah.
Like regulatory, there's no real distributors, so it wasn't a market that really any of us brand owners attacked or new customers there, right?
It's so funny because all the brands that I talk to, like even large, massive brands, we're talking about 100 million, 200 million plus brands, that Japan's not even on their radar because it's just too hard. Everyone that they ask say it's too difficult, and you're right. Regulations are really high. The quality requirements are super high. Like the gap of culture and information is so high. There is no GNC. There is no vitamin shop. There is no brick and mortar.
Right.
There is no mom and pop.
Yeah.
If you have no presence, you have no salespeople, you have nothing. How do you develop a brand that no one's even ever heard of?
Right.
It is so difficult and so challenging that.
And it's new categories to the consumer.
Yeah.
Same thing with China. No brick and mortar.
Yeah.
They do have GNCs and some stuff like that, but nothing like here in America.
Correct.
Primarily, most of your supplement is all sold online,
Yeah.
or what they call from distributors who are actually fitness trainers in the gym. So
Right.
you have trainers that in the gym that buy supplements from somebody, and they'll go and sell it to all their clients. Technically, that's what they call distributors.
Correct. And
Same thing in Japan.
No. So it's the opposite. And I also, from my Japan experience, worked in China and did the same thing.
Yeah.
I toured in China and basically saw that those micro distributors from the gyms and stuff. Here's the crazy part about Japan. You can't sell supplement products that are not regulated at all. So you can't even have a fitness trainer in like the China model where you could have someone that's promoting those products and physically have it there.
Got it.
Because you can't import it into the country.
Right.
So if you can't import pallets or containers and you can't place it into brick and mortar, everything is online. It is 100% digital.
The limitation there is the regulatory aspect
If you want to go into
from importing directly.
Yes, if you want to get into, let's say, pharmacies or let's say groceries, they do have those. But the thing is like the registration time.
5 years.
Nope.
More. 10.
More. 15 years
15
is the
years.
average registration time.
Wow.
And that's if you get approved. And the
Right.
reason why is that, again, very conservative. The only companies that do that are like pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
In our industry is too small. You're not going to spend 10 to 15 years to crack a market, to go in through importation.
Yeah.
Which creates what Supplinks is, which is a gap market fulfiller. We're able to provide customers United States products shipped directly to the consumers without importation for personal use and consumption, which helps go through a lot of regulatory things. And because Supplinks is the oldest independent e-tailer, created in 1998,
Wow.
we have a history. And our parent company, the one
That's
who,
almost 30 years.
around 25 plus
Yeah.
years, where we're basically had a platform.
Family owned.
It was privately owned, and then it was acquired about 8 years ago from Pharmaceutical Holdings. The company that owns us was created in 1955.
Wow, even older.
So everything that they do is so meticulously strategic in safety and quality, in terms of like not taking on new innovative ideas, except when there was a time where it shifted. That paradigm has shifted into the market, and now you see brands that are growing in Japan, not only thanks to Supplinks, but also to, let's say, iHerb, let's say to Hide Yamagishi, people that laid the groundwork of health and fitness, more gyms are opening up, more people are getting into exercise and fitness, and it is the fastest growing Asian market for health and nutrition, and it's a massive economy. It has so much opportunity.
Yeah, they got the people, they got the money.
You got everything.
You know, I think, to divert a little bit here, but I think where a lot of American brand owners or reps that work for companies, you know, one of my tactics back in the day was I would travel to the market.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, you did it by going to Japan, right?
Yep.
But that was one of my tactics in the early Pro Subs days was, you know, instead of emailing, WhatsApping, texting, let's get on a plane, you know, and show up.
Yeah.
And let's learn the market, right?
Yes.
And me in the early days not knowing anything, I probably felt like I was the same way a lot of other brand owners was like, you know, people in Japan are just like Americans. They take pre-workouts 3 times a day like I do, right?
Yep.
They drink energy drinks all day long like we do. And when I started traveling these markets and realized it's not the same way as America, right? And then you start looking at the cultural stuff, the economics in the country, how all that stuff kind of, and that's where my mind shifted, where I started to create specific products for specific markets. And that was one of the things in my early days that was really successful. And, you know, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they don't try to understand the market and think how we do things here in America is how these other countries do it. And one of the eye-opening lessons for me in Asia or China specifically, you're talking about conservative markets, right? Where historically growing up in these countries, when it came to supplementation, you know what that meant for these people? It's by boiling a tea.
Right.
It's by getting an herb in the farm, not by taking something in a capsule or something in a powder that's flavored. Like that whole concept was very new to these people, right?
Right.
And I think the paradigm shift also happened, you know, iHerb obviously and things like that, but I contributed to social media.
Yeah.
You know, things like Instagram, obviously TikTok, you know, over in that part of the world, it's opened up the eyes to the younger consumer where they're seeing fitness and gym and supplements and how people are consuming these products where they're more willing to try. And that young generation versus the older, 40 plus generation where they grew up more herbal and tea based.
Correct.
That young generation wants the supplements, and it's only going to expedite at this point.
And you're exactly right. And going back to, your experience and what you did in terms of visiting accounts and showing up in person, and as I know you as Mr. International is what I call you, because I know that you were one of the best, if not the best international sales rep that I knew, because you did something that most reps didn't do, which is show up. And that means everything to a distributor and a retailer. And I would just want to touch on the point that a lot of brands were used to back in the day, the standard reseller wholesaler agreement. You know what? Let me call you. I'm a salesperson. Hey, we have this brand. Yes, we're popular in the United States. Come buy our product, sell our product. That's pretty much it.
That's it.
That's not what develops a brand. It really takes a lot of steps to go through cultural barriers and get this information. And you did what I did as well too, is get involved, physically show up, learn what is needed. If you just listen to what your customer has to say, they'll tell you what they need. And if you can execute those things and be compatible, you'll be super successful. And that's...
And don't get me wrong. Obviously, it's expensive to
Yes.
jump on a plane and fly all around the
Yes.
world. It's expensive to participate in trade shows in these countries. Most brands are probably not open to customizing formulations.
Correct.
There was a point where I think we had like 8 different versions of Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
But if I didn't do that in the early days, I never would have got the opportunity for ProSups back in those days to enter these countries.
Correct.
Because we weren't a legacy brand. We were crushing the U.S., but a lot of people don't realize when ProSups started, Instagram didn't exist.
Right.
So you were still in different times.
Right.
So by me altering my formulation to something that would be approved by them got me in the door.
Right.
And then once that got in the door and started to sell, oh, you know what? I'll take your protein. I'll take your aminos. I'll take this, right?
Yeah.
Then you back that up with a trip. You do a trade show, spend a week with them.
Yep.
And, one of the things that I hold tight to my chest now is some of my best friends in the world are not Americans.
Yep.
It's these distributors around the world that I say are family to me at this point, right? And it was a lot of that work, and I'm sure you've got some similar experiences, but It was that early work today where, the last couple of years I've done some different things with some different brands, and I've been able to put these brands in these countries, and there's no, I think I'm a good sales guy, but at the end of the day, it comes down to relationship. That these people just want to support me, right?
I agree.
And it's kind of like old school business in America,
Yeah.
which obviously it doesn't exist this way anymore. Very traditional, a lot of stuff with a handshake and loyalty and integrity
Yeah.
still exists in a lot of these places, specifically like Asia, right?
Yeah.
Where, talk about tradition. Doesn't get no deeper than that over there, right?
And that's exactly how I entered the Japan market, was showing up, doing those things, following through with what I said. And I operate the same way. I'm a handshake kind of agreement guy, and I just want to do and design business strategic models that make profit, that are economically great, and that make sense into the culture. And that's what happened in the Japan market.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. All of these relationships of everything I developed is all because of the effort, the amount of time that I put into it to build that rapport and that trust in the industry. So
Right.
I was able to build that trust in the industry through brick and mortar stores. I was able to do it with manufacturing. I was able to do it with international accounts. And that's what Supplinks basically put me in responsibility, is to manage their entire portfolio.
Yeah.
They came in and they offered and they said, listen, we carry over 3,500 SKUs by 80 different suppliers. We've never had an American worker before. We have literally over 17 offices in Japan. We have near almost 400, 500.
Talk about a cultural barrier, right? Just right.
Huge.
Adding an American employee, huge.
It was huge. And again, this is out of character, one could say, because
100%.
they're so reserved and conservative that it's, again, island culture. They're not necessarily, keeping people away, but they're more sticking to their own.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw just the amount of effort and the things that I did and everything I represented, it really made sense. And I went out of my way to understand culture too, meaning the greetings, the gestures, the way to hand a business cards. I took note in terms of everything that you look and interact with someone to show respect to the culture. Right. And that's what basically got the foot in the door. And then a successful proof of concept, which then parlayed into manage everything into multiple proofs of concepts. Now I'm over here developing multiple brands, different strategies, different athletes, working with trades, doing so many different things. It's so fun.
There's a lot there in that last statement, man.
Yeah.
But I think you've been on all sides. You've been on the brick and mortar side. So
Yes.
You've been on the retail side.
Yep.
You've been on the brand side.
Yep.
/ manufacturing side.
Yep.
And just the fact that, like you said, a Japanese company, I think it comes down to smart business people. The head people at Supplinks saw an opportunity, obviously,
Yep.
and I think that they're smart business people, right? They were open to the ideology of hiring an American. I know we got about 5 minutes left here, but
Yeah.
I think it's super cool what you've done. I think you're still in the infancy stages. I think
Yep.
you kind of have it mapped out at this point.
Yep.
Pre-prepared, because you'll get blown up once all these brand owners watch this podcast. So everybody's going to be inboxing you and DMing you. Please take my brand to Japan. Please take my brand to
Yeah.
Japan. So, obviously that's great that there's interest there, but I'm sure you have, certain requirements on what you do when you look for a brand out there. You got to make sure that the brand's going to be able to support you, support Supplinks.
Yep.
There's probably a checklist of things that you look for there.
Absolutely.
And making sure you do that, and making sure that, I guess, the people in charge of those brands also understand that the way they do certain things in America probably most likely won't be how that brand grows in Japan.
Correct. And I'm just going to touch on that so we could wrap it up. But there's an SOP that I built. I'm very good at systems and economics and working out everything. I have this whole list of stuff. The first step is try samples of the product. I already know what the flavors that will do well into my market, which are whatever your top least sellers are in U.S. market. Invert it.
Yeah.
If it's grape, if it's orange, anything that's a fruit, anything that's just a basic single ingredient flavor. If you do candies, cereals, sweets,
Too sweet for them. Yeah, too
all.
sweet.
Basically, I look at these things and I put it into this list. I send that list to the consumers, but I just want to warn brands right now. The barrier to entry is astronomically high. The wait time is really long, but it is one of the best international markets, period. If you have the infrastructure with your staff and your team, the financial backing, and you're ready to penetrate that market and you're willing to invest in those things, there's always opportunities. I already have a list of brands that will be launching soon that'll be really interesting that we're going to announce. And we can always have that conversation, but I also, again, I want to put that up there. If you're not ready to execute all these things, this is not your typical market.
Is there without getting too specific, is there a monetary value that you can throw out there of what a brand needs to be willing to start, to even play ball? Or
here's what's really fun. Every single agreement that I've done, every brand that I've looked at has a different model, has a different strategy. I look at everything that your brand has. I look at what your costs are, what your assets are. Like, let's say you're good at D2C and you're really good at advertisement. Let's say you have athletes. Every brand operates differently. I've had brands offer me $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 free fills, money up front. It doesn't matter. It's not just about money.
Right.
It's about building a strategy that can compound month over month, organically grow, and actually work. If you don't have a certain asset to bring to the table, I don't want to waste your money and just burn it. If I
mean, people think free fills are great or all this free goods, but what nobody realizes is how much setup the team has to do with SKUs and the system, creating, the catalog, putting the marketing efforts in, and you do all that work and it fails because it's missing a key component of the recipe. It's time on you. It's time on them. Ultimately, they start to look at you and say, there's going to be some duds. It happens right at the end of the day. But I think that's some great advice. Where do you see, to wrap this up, where do you see the Japanese market in the next, call it 3 to 5 years in retrospect, to the world? And, I'd say the American piece of business is there Japanese brands? We didn't touch on that, but are there Japanese supplement brands existing?
There are, and they do well. So there are Japanese brands that do well in the market. They have different formulations. The downside of the Japanese brand is that they cannot use any innovative ingredients. And the Japanese consumer wants effective dosages and innovative ingredients. And if you make it and manufacture in Japan, you don't have access to it. It will help the market cap and grow the industry as a total, and it will have its niche because there's different demographics that everyone's targeting. What I see in this market is massive growth. More gyms are opening up, more fitness.
What kind of gyms? More functional fitness, I would say, probably. They're usually,
fitness. It's
not necessarily bodybuilding, but yeah. I remember when I was in China 3-4 years ago, CrossFit was the hottest thing they've ever seen.
So over here, you got more like aerobics, you got more like light gym weightlifting. You've got people that are interested in the bikini and the physique. That's basically the top. Bodybuilding is a small niche, but still fascinating. You're getting more new blood generation, like you touched about people creating new content, and you have new brands coming into market. So the market cap is going to continue to compound, and every brand that I work with continues to organically grow. We're very selective of what we do, and we're going to just keep on crushing it.
Well, man, hats off to you, the Suppleaks team. Obviously, you'll have to translate this for them if they get to watch this. But love seeing you where you started, kind of what you're doing right now. Again, I believe you're in the infancy stages right now.
Yes.
I've seen the firsthand what the Asian markets are capable of. COVID threw a little bit of a roadblock, out there. Well, for the whole world, right?
Right.
But, in the last couple of months, I've heard some really good things about Asia turning it around. And probably by December, China and a lot of these markets are going to be back online and starting to crank. The Asian consumer wants these products. They still do crave American products. So I think that's something that us here as American brand owners is big.
Yep.
There is one brand I know that's coming to Japan soon. Do you want to drop
we can announce it because it's already approved and it's already moving. So
shouts out to the guys over at Raw Nutrition. Chris Bumstead, C-Bum coming to Japan soon. So stay tuned. Sam, thank you for coming on here. House of Greatness.
Thanks for having me.
Love seeing what you're doing, brother.
Absolutely.
Take care.
See you later.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.